Okay, so this video is about sources, evidence, reading, amassing information that you can use for your assignments. So where to start? Well, first of all, in one sense, any assignment we set you is sending you off into the grand unknown. It's a little bit like in the old days of the Wild West, when the European settlers were moving westwards across the United States and sending people out, first of all, over the Appalachians, then over the Rockies, etc., in the aim of getting right the way to the Pacific. Now, if you were being sent out into a completely unknown territory, I'm sure the first thing you do is send out scouts to look at the way, to bring back information, to enable you to plan a way ahead for the eventualities that you're pretty sure are going to come to pass. Well, there's a sense in which that is what you're doing when you're doing a piece of academic work, because we're sending you out into the unknown. If you knew the answers, what would be the point of us asking you the question? So we're sending you out into the great unknown. Well, one of the first things that you would do, of course, if we're sending you out into that unknown, is to answer the question, well, it's unknown to me, but perhaps it's not unknown to everyone. Perhaps there have been scouts that have gone out there, have been looking around, and actually have brought reports back, have told us about this. Maybe we already know about that. There is the wonderful expression, let's not reinvent the wheel. The wheel's been around for thousands of years. You don't need to really invent the concept of something round with an axle. I mean, we've had that, we've got it. You can refine it, but the basic concept is there. So the question is, what do we already know? I don't mean you as a student doing the work. What is already known? Perhaps other scouts have gone out there. We perhaps call them researchers, maybe academics, maybe reporters even, maybe professionals. And they've gone out there, maybe facing the same question, maybe facing similar questions, maybe facing the same question, but in a totally different context, but the answers might be transferable. In other words, there's probably an awful lot out there. So before we rush off and start doing our own personal research by going out with a clipboard, standing there in the pouring rain and saying, oh, what do you think of this? Wouldn't it be a good idea if we tried to ask the question, well, what is already known about this? Because that would give us perhaps a good trampoline, a good jumping off point to be able to start working towards answering this question. So the first thing we do, and it is really funny in one sense, because we call it secondary research. Primary research is research I do, but before I bother doing any research, I need to see what other people have done. So what I want to do is to go out and, with a very good understanding of what the question is asking, and then go and search with this wonderful tool called the internet, or on the desks of people at work, or by talking to people and trying to find out if they've got any information that they can give us and lend us. The first thing you do is what we call secondary research, because it's secondary to you. It's not personal primary research you do yourself. So you go out and look at that. So I'm not just talking about your rapport de stage or your memoir or your thèse, where you are attacking a big subject and you fully expect to go out and look at what is currently known on the subject, and then go out and do something additional by the way of your own individual primary research. I'm suggesting that you are taking this approach, in effect, with every question or topic that we address to you. So the first thing is you need to go out and get that information to find out what we already know. Now, some questions we asked you as teachers can rely 100% on what we already know and not expect you to go out and do any primary research of your own. If I asked you a question on basic marketing techniques, well, you could go and get Kotler's book on marketing or international marketing, and the answers would be there. We wouldn't really need to know anymore. It is a well-traveled path, but at least you would be able to show us that you have gone away, you've searched, you've found good material. What's good? Something you can trust, something you can rely upon. If you did the research again today, you'd still find the same answers. That's what we mean by valid and reliable. So we expect you to do that. That is the lifeblood of your assignments. Because otherwise, if you just say, I think, you may well be thinking, but are you right? How are you going to prove to us that you are right? How are you going to prove to your boss if he says, look, if I do what you're suggesting, it's going to cost me 150,000 euros. You'd better be right. Can you show me some evidence? Well, you'd better have the evidence and in detail to be able to back it up. So what would be convincing evidence? Well, it would be something that someone has gone away and researched. Someone who perhaps is known, someone who is respected, someone perhaps who is writing in a recognized academic journal. Right, you're turning off now, you're switching off. Oh my heavens, academics. They just want us to read their journal articles because it's all they do. Well, it's actually not that at all. We and professionals write these articles because we believe we're doing good work. We can check things, we can test things, we can analyze things, we can evaluate things, and we can come up with conclusions and recommendations such that if someone else finds themselves, perhaps like you, in the same situation, if they follow our advice, if they follow the process, if they are aware of these potential problems ahead, then we can save them an awful lot of time, effort, money, and heartache if they're going to get it wrong. So we're asking you to do this for a very good reason, because we want to be able to depend on what you say. Well, next question is, well, how do you find a good source? Well, you're probably going to say, on the internet. Nothing wrong with saying that. In my day, books took years to produce and they were out of date by the time they came into print. But there wasn't anything else. There wasn't an internet. Nowadays, published books are still good and they're dependable, but they do date very quickly. The internet is becoming the weapon of choice for research, for presenting research, and making sure it's always up to date. You can usually find the latest thing, but how do you know it's dependable? Well, if someone writes in an academic journal, the Harvard Business Review, for example, why is that good? Well, everybody recognizes the quality and the accuracy of what's in the Harvard Business Review. Why? Because if you get published in that review, it means you have sent in a draft of your paper. It's gone and it's been sent to the very best in the business, the greatest experts, academics that we know on this particular subject matter that you have chosen. They won't know your name. It will be anonymized. They will read it. blind. They don't know who it is, whether it's a friend or their greatest competitor. But they will be asked for their opinion as to whether this is worthy of publishing. Is it good? Is it solid? Is it dependable? Has it been done in a precise and well thought out way? Is there a good methodology behind it? Can one rely on these conclusions? To get your article published and to go through a peer group review where the best in the business looks at what you are writing, they may come back and say, it's not good enough. We don't want to publish it. They may come back and say, with some amendments here, 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 and here, we think it's excellent. They may say, this is fabulous, publish. But what it does mean is, when you open the Harvard Business Review and you look at what's there, you know it's been checked, it's been reliable. So we're sincerely hoping that if you take that information, you quote that information, everybody's going to go, ooh, wow, that's good, that's dependable. He's found a good source, it's reliable, we can trust it. If he's basing some of his suggestions on that, okay, that's great. We can rely on that. We can trust it. We can invest our $150,000 in this project that he's suggesting because it is underpinned, it's supported by decent research. So academic journals are good at that. But when you get to other sources online, how do you judge? For example, you do a search on Google and you get a .com address. It might be the first thing in the Google search returns, so a lot of people have been looking at it. It's been linked to a lot of times. It's got a lot of likes. Terrific. Google's algorithm has picked it up. But can you safely use it in your assignment? Well, you have to be circumspect. You have to think and you have to check it. If it's a .com, it's commercial. If it's commercial, someone is setting out to make money. If they're setting out to make money, they have what we call a vested interest, a real interest in selling to the reader their own view of business and of the world in order to convince you to spend money with them or to influence you. Can you trust it? Who owns the company? You might need to check on that before you just throw in a .com source. Okay, well, let's try something else. .org, an organization, an association, as the French would say. Is that reliable? Because it's not commercial. Surely that's better. Really? Why do we form associations? We form associations because we believe in a particular view of the world. Well, people who believe in one thing do not necessarily believe in others. The information they provide may be biased. It may lean towards what they want to convince you of, what they believe in. There's an organisation called Tourism Concern, which is concerned about the damage that tourism is doing. If you're looking for a good piece of neutral research on the impacts, positive and negative, of the tourism industry, you would see a lot of the negative stuff on Tourism Concern. You might not see a lot about the positive. Okay, so you have to be very careful with associations and organisations. If you see .ac.uk, if you see .edu, those are normally educational. If they're educational, we are committed to being unbiased. We're committed to being neutral. We're committed to being honest. We're committed to being fair. You can probably rely on those. What about governments? .gouv.fr, for example. Aren't they supposed to be correct and reliable? Well, yes, but who is the government? The government is led by people who have a political vision. Yes, they are honor bound. They have to put out figures which are honest and accurate. But the way they interpret them, the things they choose to say and the things they choose not to say about those things depend upon political ideology. So what am I saying here? You desperately need evidence and support, information that your teachers, your markers know that you have researched, you've spent a lot of effort to find, you've checked that this information is valid and reliable, and you can depend upon it. That's great. Which brings us to another thing, which is when you've found that material, how do you make it work for you? How do you use that information properly? Because you can't just copy and paste it. You can't just steal it and pretend it's yours. At some point you have to cite it and say who it is, attribute it, and have to give us a bibliography or a references list, if you like, which enables us, if we want to go and check out what you're saying, we can find exactly the same page and article online that you are relying on. How to do that is going to have to be in my next video, okay? But I've tried in this one to show you the real importance of the need to find information. If you're in your licence, you need to get with this program. If you are on a master's and you're not doing this yet, you have to do it, and do it fully and completely right now from M1. Don't wait for M2 and your rapport de stage or your memoir. You have to be thorough about this right now, because if you haven't got enough evidence, we can't trust what you are saying. It's as simple as that. So my next video is going to be on citation, attribution, and heaven help us, plagiarism, which is failing to attribute things that you have copied and pasted or borrowed or paraphrased without saying whose words they really are. That is a serious crime, and I can help you not to make that mistake. So that's the next one. Okay, thanks for hanging with this. I know it's a bit long, I know it's a bit tough, but there we go. All right, bye for now.